for tuning in today for the first block break conversation of the spring semester. We're joined by several of our leaders who support students to talk about what the student experience is like during the COVID-19 pandemic. Rochelle Dickey, Acting Dean of Students and Acting Vice President for Student Life. Brian Young, Vice President for Information Technology, and the person who has been leading the college's COVID efforts. Professor Andrea Bruder, Associate Dean of the Faculty and Chair of the Scientific Advisory Group, and Pedro de Araujo, Vice Provost and an Associate Professor of Economics.
Mike and I would like to start this conversation first by thanking the many staff, those in student life, those in academic support like the Advising Hub, who have gone way beyond cause to reimagine how to engage with our students, how to have meaningful co-curricular opportunities. This environment has been really unprecedented for us, and we're grateful for the time and the care and the creativity of the staff. We want to thank everyone for that, and we want to thank all of you who are watching for taking the time to sit down and have this conversation.
Why don't we just get started? We know a day in the life of a student is much different now than it was last year or from a normal year. Rochelle and Pedro, the two of you really have the responsibility of helping create the student experience. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what goes into your planning process and how do you help the student have as much of a robust student experience as possible?
Thank you so much for that question. I'll go ahead and start with that. Certainly, we've had to be creative. Our ideas have had to evolve along with the rest of campus culture. So really, we've been centering on ways to keep our students safe, keep our students engaged, and it's really important to help students have fun because that is a critical part of the college experience as well. So really happy to say that students told us that we've been able to do all three of those things during first semester, and we're looking forward to continuing that. Our students have really helped to evolve and change culture on campus, particularly around observing risk mitigation protocols. So I just want to commend our students. You've set great examples for your peers, worked with staff to come up with new activities and events, and engaged. So it's really important to note that all of our resources here on campus, whether in the student life division, academic division, athletics, everywhere on campus, have been open and accessible to students, whether in person or remotely. So we've really done our best to keep those up and going and keep our students engaged. And we'll look forward to continuing those as we get to know our students more and they get to know more and more about our resources and services and continue to utilize those. So engagement and fun and safety have really been the hallmarks of what we've done so far and what we'll continue to do.
Rochelle, before you turn it over to Pedro, I just want to follow up. You know, we really have in many ways three students are interacting with campus in three different ways. We have students living on campus, we have students living near campus, and we have students that are remote. Could you talk about the opportunities that each of those sets of students have to engage with campus and still stay, you know, a CC
Sure.
Tiger? What's
Sure.
going on there?
Right, for our Tigers, and that's a great question as well. So for our students who are here on campus, under the wonderful guidance of our residential experience team, our pod living model, and I'll touch base on that a little more later, where students are grouping together in social networks, pod perks, where students are getting a chance to do some activities in person as a pod. So our students here on campus are experiencing some things in person and remotely. And of course, for those in-person events, following all of our risk mitigation protocols, and students have done a great job with that. We have students here in the community who told us they wanted to be able to access campus and participate in some events and have access. So our testing protocols and making sure that students are aware of expectations on campus. Our local students are accessing campus and engaging as well. And again, wherever students are on campus, here in the community or remote, all of those wonderful support services I mentioned have been up and running. And we're hearing from our colleagues that students are definitely using those remote accesses as well. So again, trying to keep students engaged, however they're interacting as a CC Tiger.
And jump in, try to complement what Dean Dickey is kind of mentioned on the academic side. You know, as we gear up to start an exciting semester, I think, with many courses in terms of formats, in terms of topics, you know, there's everything, right, that we're going to be offering. And that poses some challenges, of course, you know, because some students are here, some are not, right? Some are going to be taking in-person classes, others are going to be taking remote classes, right? And on the academic side, what we really have to focus on is being able to give access, you know, to all students, regardless of where they are in terms of their academic support. So for example, our COCIT Center for Academic Excellence, which houses the Quantitative Reasoning Center and the Writing Center, they've developed pretty much virtual sessions for all students, and students can access at any point, right, as if they were on campus in the library, right? So the quality of these services, we try to really zone in and try to figure out a way, right, to deliver, if not better quality, at least the same, right, as we typically been doing. As President Moore mentioned, the advising hub has been swamped with appointments, which is great to see. Students are, their virtual doors are open. Students are connecting with them to ask questions about not only classes, but also opportunities on campus in terms of faculty research, in terms of virtual venture grants and other fellowships that office actually oversees. So there's a lot of activity happening on the co-curricular side, on the academic side of the house, where we're trying to give students the same feel as if they were on campus, but doing it in a way that it's as safe as possible.
Pedro, could you and Rochelle just go back and tease that out some more? I loved how you talked about academic support and students taking advantage of that. And Rochelle, you had already mentioned the concept of fun. I would love, could you give us some examples of things that you are doing that's campus activity related, community building? How can we continue to help students interact with one another during this COVID time? And anything special you have planned as we go through this spring semester?
Thank you. Happy to elaborate on that. Yes, fun is important, and it's really great when students tell us that they're engaging and having fun. So a couple of great examples. If you're here on campus and you happen to drop by the exterior patio of Benji's on the fourth Monday of every block, there's a wonderful study break. You'll see students there wearing masks, being socially distant. If the weather is chilly, we have hot drinks and heaters out there. You'll stop by and see students making cookies. We had 85 students come by yesterday to grab cookies and do decorating, taking back to their rooms or sitting there and watching inauguration. Self-care kits and takeaway kits have been one of our biggest hits this year, so we'll continue those. So students can come by Warner Center on a regular basis and get everything from a weaving instruction and supplies, painting, self-care kits, yoga mats, and the list goes on. And again, These are things that are free to our students. Sometimes they'll hang out and do these activities together. Sometimes they'll take them back to their rooms to do those. So we'll be definitely continuing all of those. Snow care kits on chilly days. We've seen our students out enjoying the weather here in Colorado Springs. Usually nice weather, but we're making sure that again, hot drinks, heaters, all those types of things, so our students can be outdoors having fun as we have chilly weather as well. We had wonderful student engagement for the first ever virtual celebration of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Day. So talk about great remote engagement. We had students who were speakers speaking from Sri Lanka, from all parts of this country. So great examples of how even remotely our students are engaging with us, with members of the community around those types of things. And the last thing I'll mention really quickly here is, of course, we've got a Winter Start orientation coming up. So looking forward to having those students engaging in person and remotely as well.
And I hear that an outdoor speed friending event organized by the Residential Life team was very popular and well attended.
We will definitely do that again. We did that in a virtual and an in-person format. So speed friending, great way for students to meet each other. Thank you, Professor Bruder.
And our students, they continue to be engaged not only within each other on campus, but also with our community partners, right? So the Collaborative for Community Engagement, for example, has been hosting, blockly virtual workshops, right? And we have some virtual volunteer opportunities for our students, right? They can just log into their page. They've been doing this pretty actively to try to, continue to engage, right? Not only with each other, but also with members of the community, which is incredibly rewarding to see that our students continue to want to give, to learn, right, to participate, right, in the life of our community, even if they are remote. So I think that's really just highlights how engaged really our students are, regardless of, if they're on campus or if they're not on campus, which is something that's, I wouldn't have imagined, right, before we began, this new way of dealing with life on campus. So these are one of the aspects that I wanted to highlight, which is there are some advantages, there are some things of us meeting in this particular way, right? So I think Dean Dickey just mentioned, the Martin Luther King celebration, where probably it wouldn't have happened in that particular way if we were all on campus. We wouldn't probably have students speaking from different countries and different areas, right? So there is this idea that sometimes meeting this way and engaging in this particular way can be as inclusive as, being everyone on campus and participating.
I agree with that. And I said I had my last comment, but that's not true. I really do want to commend CCSGA, our student government and student groups and organizations. So it's not just our offices here on campus that are making sure that we're keeping people connected. Our students are really working hard, keeping their groups, their organizations up and running, and making sure that they're staying connected as well.
Thank you, Dean Dickey. I want to, before President Moore gets in, I just wanted to follow up and ask Andrea and Brian a couple of things. First of all, let me just say thank you from the CC community to Andrea and Brian for all of your efforts to help keep this community safe. And I love the fact that you've spent so much time concentrating in the science and in the data and helping us make wise decisions for this community. My question is, when you all are looking at data and science, do you look at what other schools are doing? That's a question that I get in this role all the time. Do you know what school X is doing or school Z? And I would just love to get your thoughts on how much you look at what other schools are doing and creating what has been and will continue to work for CC.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's a great question. I would share with the entire audience. We certainly look at what others are doing out in our peer group, as well as other places, not just in the US, but around the world. One of the things that we have taken at CC in terms of our approach, and I will let Andrea speak to this as well when I'm finished, is that we've really looked at the science and the data, but more specifically the science and the data here in El Paso County as well as in our state, and how that impacts the mechanisms and the tools we put in place to help mitigate and slow the spread of COVID. And so, although it's very helpful to understand what other campuses around the US are doing, and we've learned a lot from our partners, not just around the globe, but in the US, we've also learned a lot, as Andrea will share, from our local higher ed partners, like the Air Force Academy and others, who are also in the county and dealing with COVID. I'm pleased that we have always taken science to heart as we've made our decisions, including how we've looked at testing, as well as other mitigation efforts. And to remind everybody, which has been said by a number of people here today, safety and the security of our campus and the safety of our students and our campus community are paramount. And so we're always looking to adapt our strategies based on the science and based on what we see. And thankfully, we're able to do that because we have a nimble and effective plan that our science advisory group and others have helped put into place. Andrea, I'll turn it over to you to maybe talk about some of the specifics around that as well.
Thank you, Brian. On the Science Advisory Group, we've taken a data-driven and evidence-informed approach to designing our mitigation strategies. So, of course, around the behavioral changes of social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing protocols, to our robust testing program that includes symptomatic testing that is open to all students living on campus or locally off campus at the Student Health Center, to our robust weekly testing program. So a percentage of the CC community is being tested every week for COVID. It's a screening program, and that percentage is can be adapted depending on the number of new weekly cases that we see on campus, and a number of other parameters, including parameters in the county as well. And of course, it's been helpful to learn from others, such as the Air Force Academy's pandemic team that we've been keeping in touch with. And we've also been consulting with a team of national epidemiologists and public health experts from Crown and Company. And we're working closely with the epidemiologists at El Paso County Health as well. I've been so impressed with the students' commitment to community safety. Making those behavior changes is tough, especially in a close-knit community such as CC. But it's precisely that community-minded approach, combined with our robust COVID testing program, designed by the Science Advisory Group, contact tracing and wastewater testing, that layered system of mitigation is what allowed us to have students on and around campus in the fall semester. And this is what has kept the number of infections on campus very low, in fact, much lower than in the surrounding community.
Brian, let me ask you to name some of the partners who have been helping us with this effort. I think it'd be good for the listeners to hear of the names of the organizations who are either on campus now or have been here helping with testing, et cetera.
Absolutely. Thanks, Robert. And I will apologize if I miss somebody and ask Andrea to also chime in. So many of our campus community, as well as our local partners, have been helping out with our ongoing testing efforts. And as you've heard from Andrea, it's not just about PCR testing, but all the additional testing components we put into place, wastewater and others. A number of our campus partners, from facilities to athletics, to information technology, to just across the board, how many people have come to really be a part of the efforts to test and to stop the mitigation of COVID. We also have a number of external partners who have been great to help us, including our health partners, Optum Health, who helps run our student health center, as well as UC Health, which is a large local partner here in El Paso County, but also across the state. And so many others in terms of local partners, from helping us with wastewater to collection of samples. So that's just a small amount, but huge thank you to a number of our campus community, as well as our science advisory group and so many others who have been so great as we've put our mitigation efforts in place. And as you heard from Andrea, they're ever changing. And that's one of the benefits of our plan, is that we can adapt to make changes based on what we see happening with the virus.
Brian and Andrea, I know that there is growing optimism because the vaccine is here and is starting to get rolled out. Could you just speak to how things might evolve spring semester? Will April look any different than January? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I think we'll see more and more members of the CC community being vaccinated, and we've received the first few questions from students and CC employees who have received the first dose and maybe even the second dose of the vaccine. So we're very excited about that because ultimately vaccination is what will help us stop and end the pandemic. We do want to be, we still want to be careful though with our mitigation measures as only a few of us are being vaccinated. And still adhere to mitigation protocols, social distancing, mask wearing, testing, and quarantine and isolation protocols also still apply to people who have been vaccinated, at least until everyone has had a chance to receive the vaccine and we have achieved herd immunity.
Thanks, Andrea, and Mike. I would also just add, as a reminder to everyone who's listening and watching, that every state is rolling out their plans differently. We are tied closely to Colorado and to the state health department and to the governor's office. Our presidents are actively involved in this. Many of us on the screen are, and so we continue to work with our state of Colorado on the vaccine rollout, where higher ed and CC will fall into that mix, and encourage everyone when that time comes, whether that's now or in the future, to please get vaccinated.
So just before we end the conversation, Rochelle, I want to ask you to talk a little bit about what you see happening in this next semester on campus as more students come back, as your staff continues to develop these wonderful programs to involve our students in a new and different way.
Thank you, President Moore. On campus, I am really looking forward to how we'll continue to help our students reap the benefits of this pod living model that I mentioned earlier. Our students are telling us that they love this. They've got mental, emotional, physical health benefits. And again, a pod is students living together and selecting sort of that friend group. They're able to do activities together as a group. So we'll continue to think creatively with our students about pod perks. What are, again, some of those benefits of students? Said maybe our pod can have the gym all to ourselves one night. All of those types of things. We're really looking forward to that. For our students who will be here in the community, again, we look forward to seeing them on campus, to be able to engage in events. And of course, wherever our students are, we look forward to having them engage with our staff, engage with the groups, organizations, and keep that really critical connection to Colorado College. So we just always look forward to thinking of new, exciting ways, hearing what our students have to say, and again, making sure that we're keeping that critical connection and engagement for all of our students. So we'll continue working towards that.
So Mike and I want to thank the four of you for joining us, but essentially we really want to thank you for all of your efforts on helping Colorado College deal with this unique situation we find ourselves in. So thank you all.